We're gonna go ahead. Are we already recording?
3, 2, 1.
Hey, welcome back to the Godfo Universe podcast. I am your co-host Joshua Adams here with Dan Evans. We are the co-creators of the Godfo Universe. Books, games, comics, you name it, we're doing it. And we have a guest here, our lore master Hans, who is going
Welcome.
to he's going to be joining us for today's episode. So you're bringing the topic today, Hans. So go ahead and introduce your topic for us. What do you want to talk about today, man?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
first off, welcome guys. You've seen me before on the podcast, but you haven't been introduced to me until Josh did in an official capacity. Um, you'll recognize this voice in
From Smooth
future,
Jazz.
yeah, in future lore videos. Um, I will say coming to you live from the podcast of the Godfo universe, things like that. So get used to the voice. You'll be hearing it around some more. Anyway, yeah. So today I was going to talk about how
Now, brown
Brilliant.
things.
cow.
I wanted to word it the right way because I don't want any confusion. I don't want this to be like an entire like slander podcast. I want to describe how things develop outside of Disney. You know how Disney or Warner, for that matter, manipulates a Marvel or a DC because they have the rights to it. There are other mediums of creation that can also either be better or be ruined that don't have to be Disney or Warner. And a lot of that resides in the toy industry or other more independent comic book stuff. So mostly highlighting Transformers that's about to come out, Barbie that's about to come out, Ninja Turtles that's about to come out. Iconic things that maybe or maybe not need a redo over, or maybe not could be ruined. Originally, my thought was here are things that can be ruined without Disney's help or without Warner's help. But then they could also be made better too. I don't know. Anyway, that's the topic we're going to discuss, and basically you know, how unoriginal things have to be. And it's not that I have anything against new Transformers, Barbies, or Ninja Turtles or things like that coming out. It's why does it have to be another something of that, or why do we even need a Barbie movie to begin with? Why do we ever need a G.I. Joe movie to start with way back when? Why
You mean live
can't we
action,
just
right?
create live action? Why can't we just create
New things.
new things? Why? I
Yeah,
mean,
and
you
that's
know,
that's certainly it's something that's been happening for a while, but it's definitely gotten worse in recent years. These franchises that just get rebooted and rebooted and rebooted to death. And I would agree because I'm the oldest one in this group, I think. So like I grew up in the 80s with all these franchises that they keep going back and mining those same franchises again and again and again with differing results. And there's that part of you that does say, why can't they just, like you said, make something new? Why do they have to keep going back to the same well? uh but the flip side of that is it does manage to keep those things alive. It keeps those things. It brings fresh eyes to those franchises sometimes in ways that keep them alive. And what I've noticed with a lot of the my students and things like that is that they
Former students.
yeah, former students. That's right. I don't teach anymore. But what I've noticed
as
is that
as
a
of
lot of
last
times
week, everybody. Sorry.
a lot of times what happens is those kids they maybe they get introduced to it in this new format, but a lot of times if they become more than just a casual fan of it, they end up finding the old stuff and liking it more.
Well, that's the plan
So
with those companies. Is you
yeah,
you, you want like an arrowhead to go into the culture, and then they buy the old stuff.
right.
right. Well, and before we dive too deep into it, I just kind of wanted to read through
Yeah,
some
man.
of the some of the movies that are coming out. Just kind of to let you know, the three that I highlighted, the one that's about to come out the most recent to our time is going to be like next month, I think, June 17th or somewhere weird like that. I don't know the exact date, but it's going to be Transformers Rise of the Beast, which I kind of already have issues with that. We can get into that. We'll dive into the weeds of that here in a
Transformers
little
Mark of the
bit.
Beast.
Yeah, right. It's starring. They did manage to get Peter Cullen, but I mean, I guess they keep paying him, so why not keep lending your voice? Who cares? It's a cash cow, right? So Peter Cullen will be resuming Optimus Prime as per usual, and that would be the only reason I would ever watch another Transformers movie is just for Peter Cullen. That his voice alone is inspirational. Um, Someone did say a joke one time. They said, or it wasn't a joke, it was actually a serious question. It was on Facebook. I kind of tried to make a joke out of it, but I ended up being serious too. It said, which fictional character uh, would you like to have, or would you like to teach, or would you like to show a new way, or something? I don't know, somewhere like that. And my response was Optimus Prime because he would teach me. You know, he's always been super inspirational to me as a kid. Dan, you can attest. When I was even in high school, I even had like this giant Transformers encyclopedia.
Yes.
So, I mean, I was a huge fan.
You may not believe this, but Hans was a dork.
Man, I loved me some Transformers too, man. In fact, the very first like in theater movie experience that I had as a kid, the first movie my dad ever took me to see was the animated Transformers movie.
Yeah,
that was a formative like core memory for me, was going to see that movie with Unicron and all that on the big screen.
Oh my God, yeah, 1984. Oh
God,
yeah,
I love that movie.
not to date you, Josh, but man, yeah, that was 84. But that was good.
Fantastic movie.
Well, so in this movie we have Anthony Ramos, who's going to be the main human, the main star, and you guys might remember him if you've seen the movie In the Heights.
No.
If you're into musicals, I'm really, really into musicals. I know Dan,
Oh
you
yeah, he was
don't really
in
care for
Hamilton.
them.
He was on the Hamilton cast.
He was John Lawrence in Hamilton.
Yeah,
Yeah.
He was Lawrence, and he was Hamilton's son in Act One.
Yeah, that's right. He had multiple roles.
Was William Henry Harrison in it?
They have Liza Koshy as RC, Pete Davidson as Mirage. Yeah.
How does he keep existing?
I don't know, but a shining light is they have Ron Perlman as Optimus Primal.
Nice.
The ape, yeah, the gorilla. You got and you got other people. You got like Air Razor. You got a girl named Michelle Yeoh. A lot of these people I know Michelle Yeoh is pretty known, but you just have a whole list. I'm not going to go through everybody, but that's kind of the main guys. And I don't know. It's just Ron Perlman's nice, but my biggest issue. Well, we'll see. Well, I'll go over some of the other ones first. The other one I mentioned was Barbie. And the Barbie movie, it's based on the doll and from Mattel.
The what?
And the doll.
What is Barbie?
Yeah.
And that's got Margot Robbie or Robbie, however you say.
Yeah, Margot Robbie.
Why did you make her a 60-year-old Kurosawa actor? Margot Robbie.
It's Margot Robbie and, as Barbie, and it's Ryan Gosling as Ken.
Who looks ridiculous, by the way.
Yeah, he does.
Hold on. He looks way better than we do, but he's a little too old to be playing Ken.
He just looks so stupid in this movie.
Well, they have Greta Gerwig, who is the director, and she's also starring as well.
Greta, I'm gonna look her
Greta
up.
Gerwig. I'll keep going through the cast. Will Ferrell is going to be the toy company CEO.
Greta Gerwig, who is this?
Have Emma Mackey as physicist Barbie, because Barbie always had every job is a different Barbie. They have Ken number 2, who's Simu Liu. Michael Cera is a character named Alan. So Michael Cera, I guess this is his little comeback attempt.
So she's a director.
She's the director, and she's going to be in the movie.
Oh, she did Lady Bird and Little Women. Ugh. Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So I like Little Women. I won't say no to Little Women.
I like Little Women the book, and I like the other movie. Like that one, I did not like. That one.
You didn't like the
2019
more recent remake?
No, I thought it was lame.
What?
I thought they casted everybody wrong except for the younger sister, not the youngest, but the younger one that married Timothy Chalamet.
Oh,
Yeah, Florence Pugh did great, and Chalamet did good because all he has to do is like sit there and smolder, and he does a good job.
I enjoyed
I like that one.
I enjoyed it, but yeah, so that's what's going on. And as you can tell, the story, as I said, Will Ferrell's a toy company CEO. Basically, it's Margot Robbie. It's she realizes she's a toy, and there's a bigger, brighter world out there, a real world that she can go into,
So
and
it's
then
the Lego movie.
yeah, and then everybody realizes that, or it's Wreck-It Ralph, really, and
Ah.
everybody realizes that that Barbie is now the real world, and so the toy company CEO tries to capture Barbie and put her back into the Barbie world.
That's
I don't know.
bizarre. That's really the
Yeah,
plot.
Well, and
that's what the previews show. Yeah,
That sounds awful.
It's PG-13, and it's
yeah,
odd. I'm not
PG-13.
sure.
yeah. It's going to be
Yeah,
raunchy. It's going
it's
to have a
got
lot of
like
adult raunchy
it's
comedy
got
in
a
it.
raunchy comedy of flavor. I'm not sure what.
This sounds awful.
Yeah, I don't know. The tone is wildly erratic from the trailer. Like I'm not sure who they think they're making this movie for. To be perfectly
But
honest,
that's the main question people have been asking for like 6 years now. With art is like, who is this for?
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not sure who they think they're making that film for. To be, it's so all over the map in terms of
It's
what
for 40-year-old single women.
I guess.
Yeah, it's
It's the
strange.
Twilight
And then
crowd.
it might as well be. And then you have another Ninja Turtles coming out this year as well.
Oh, that looks like kind of
And
dookie.
what, the new Ninja Turtles?
Yeah, I could just say it looks
We
kind of
have
bad.
different views of that. I actually think it looks fantastic.
All right,
I-
let's get into that then. Let's go.
Well, I'll go through who's going to go through it. So it's Bebop and Rocksteady are going to be Seth Rogen and John Cena.
Ugh. One of those is good.
Jackie Chan is going to be Splinter. And then they have a whole cast of kids who are going to be the Turtles, because I guess
That's not so bad.
they actually took like real teens and made them like teen actors.
That's what the first
So
movie was.
Yeah, and I'm not familiar with a lot of the teen actors today, but here are your main 4 or 5. You have Nicholas Cantu as Leonardo.
Who?
Shimon Brown Jr. is Michelangelo, who's my personal favorite turtle. I was always a Mikey guy.
Nicholas Cantu.
Cantu, or you could say Cantu, Cantu. They're all teen actors. I'm not familiar with them, but they might be on like Nick or Disney or something. I'm just not familiar with them.
Their background would be.
Yeah, then for Raphael, the worst and most loser of all the turtles is Brady Noon, and then you have Ayo Edebiri. I don't know if I can say that name right, and she's going to be April O'Neil.
Yeah, that April looks terrible.
I will agree with that.
Yeah, so
I will concede that point.
That's going to be the cast. I don't know. I don't know how to feel about it. I mean, if it depends on the target. If the target is kids, then I could probably get on board with it. If they address the target and they don't get all like super adult with it, and they're, it's a movie about kids for kids.
I mean, that's very much what they're marketed as.
Right.
And
right.
That's the biggest reason. I know Dan thinks it looks ugly. He doesn't like the art style of it. I actually do like the art style of it.
I don't mind that either.
But I loved Spider-Verse. Dan didn't really care for Spider-Verse either. So I guess it's that's a matter of personal taste.
I don't care for Spider-Verse not because of the art. I don't care for Spider-Verse because I'm tired of seeing the same story over and over again. And what sucks is Spider-Man used to be like my favorite hero as a kid. And now all I get is so much Spider-Man. I'm just like, shut up, go away. Like, please disappear for 30 years and don't come back.
What I like about, and obviously we haven't seen the movie yet, but what I like about what I've seen of the new Ninja Turtles, the Mutant Mayhem, I think is what it's called, is it looks like they finally, it looks like they've finally gone back to the Turtles being young, being smaller, like the live action Michael Bay Turtles
ones were bad, yeah.
They were huge, and like the Turtles are supposed to be underdogs. Like they're supposed to be way smaller than anything else they're fighting. They should be scared of either scared or too young and stupid to be scared like they should be of what they're facing. I love that it's showing them as young, goofy kids again. That's like, to me, that's the best turtle stories are always when,
Yeah.
Splinter's very
When
much
they're
the father
when they're
figure.
teenage mutant ninja turtles.
Yeah, that's what I want to see. So that aspect of it, like the personalities of the turtles, seem to be pretty spot on, from the, at least from the trailer.
The
Uh,
the the only problem I had with that when you're talking about their personality, is kind of the same approach that they're taking with Transformers. Um, and Donatello wasn't my favorite. Like I said, Mikey was always my favorite because who doesn't like having a party and eating pizza, man? That's, you can't get better than that. And skateboarding, that was my life. So I loved Mikey. But um, with Donatello, he was always confident in his science. Even as like a teenage geek, he was like,
Yeah.
"I'm a nerd. I'm a know-it-all, and like I know my stuff."
Mm-hmm.
And don't question me. Like, you didn't question Donatello's science, and Donatello was always right. I mean, he was a know-it-all because he earned the right to be a know-it-all. Um, this kind of airs if you look at like different trailers, like trailer 2 or trailer 3, and different kind of clips and installments that they have leaked out online. He's very insecure. He's
Very
very
nerdy.
nerdy. He's a pushover, and he's like, "Oh no, my glasses." I mean, he's not
well,
I
to
think.
be
Yeah.
fair,
he's
though,
not confident.
I think this is the youngest version of the turtles we've ever seen, too.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
And I think that's a lot of it is, kids are very insecure.
Yeah.
I don't, I see where you're coming from. I don't personally have a problem with that because it's clear that the turtles are very young in
As
this one.
as long as they don't shove Raphael down our throat, because Raphael had the same effect Wolverine had from, the reason I never liked Wolverine was because it's not that I had no problem with an anti-hero. Wolverine was a badass, but man, Wolverine was shoved down your throat, and it made you want to hate that character so much. And that's how Raphael was too. Everyone's like, "Oh, Raphael's so cool, and he just like sits in the corner in the
Well,
shadows and he fights." And I'm like, I hate that guy. I hate him because of that. Like, he's the worst turtle to
Claremont. To
me.
be fair, wasn't it Claremont and Miller had they had kind of an ending written for Wolverine with that solo series, and like he was gonna get married in Japan.
Hmm.
Like that was
Yep.
gonna be it in like the '80s, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's
Yeah.
the thing. Like when I
He
grew
outlived
up,
his character.
And that was a cool story. That
I
was like a
grew
good
up
ending too.
yeah, I grew up with Wolverine not being all like the only thing that they ever pushed with
Yeah.
X-Men. Like
Right.
he was an important part of the stories, but like I grew up at the time when, like, even the animated series, he
Mm-hmm.
was still just a member of the team, and
Yeah.
you'd have an episode that followed him, and then you'd have an episode that followed Scott and Jean, and you might have an episode that followed Jubilee and you didn't watch it. But like, you know, it's only been since the live action movies started, really, that they started shoving Wolverine into everything.
Yeah. And
And
annoyingly so. And that's how
yeah,
I
and
feel
like
about Spider-Man now. That's why I feel like
and like
they're going with Spider-Man with me.
with Raphael, as far like when the live action movie came
Great,
out,
yeah, great movie.
God, it's still like a perfect movie. It's one of those movies that I can go back and watch a million times, and it's a perfect movie. And with Raphael and that one, like, they didn't play it off quite the same way that they do in a lot of the other ones. And
Right.
since then,
He's just
like,
a hothead, and he gets the crap
yeah,
kicked
he's
out
a
of him.
hothead, and he's had
He's
yeah, he
wrong.
gets the crap beat out of him. Yeah, and he's still very much connected to the family. He's just at that weird space in his life where he doesn't know how to connect
Well, he's
to his
not. He's not.
brothers,
He's
to
not
his
the oldest, and
father.
he's not the youngest.
Right.
Well,
And
it
they
it, it
did a good
remind
job with him in that one.
Yeah,
well,
and
it
Leo.
reminds me of what reminds me of a thing that y'all uh go back to all the time. Um about other things and other mediums, but it's almost like a generational thing. It's taking
Mm-hmm.
accountability. In the other movies and even in the comics, because they originated from comic books,
Mm-hmm.
Ninja Turtles. Raphael, he was the hothead and he was the loner, but he paid the price for it. He was always
Mm-hmm.
held accountable to it. And at the end of the day, he always answered to Leo. Even if he didn't want to, he would fight and fight and fight Leo. But at the end of the day, Master
Yep.
Splinter would say, you know,
Well, Leo would also
you
beat him.
you right, Leo would beat
Exactly.
him and he'd say you need to answer
You
to
answer to
Leo.
your
Leo's your big
brothers.
brother. Yeah, you're all equals amongst each other. You need to act like it. And he would be forced in the movie. Remember, he got his shell cracked because he tried to take on the Foot by
He
himself.
got jumped, yeah.
And yeah, he got jumped and they cracked his shell and he had to heal it. And who was the one that was sitting next to him? Leo.
Yep.
Never left his side the entire healing
Yeah, big
process.
brother. And
Yeah,
that's as long
but
as
that doesn't
as
exist
long as
anymore, you know?
yeah, well, as long as and I think that's the key dynamic. As long as you make those turtles feel like actual
People.
brotherly relationship, what a relationship with a brother feels like, as long as they get that dynamic down, I think Turtles works.
Yeah.
Well,
And you can do whatever you want to do with the visuals, but as long as you nail the brotherhood of those four, it works. And as soon as you mess with that and split them up, or put more focus on Casey Jones or something or whatever else, you lose the Turtles, and then it stops being what works as a story for me.
Casey Jones is always a supporting character, and I think he was one of the coolest supporting
Yeah,
Yeah,
characters
he's
of
one
all
of the
time.
best ones ever.
Great
And
character, yeah.
and he could take the Turtles on one, but if they all four band together, he couldn't touch them.
Right.
But here's the thing, though, with the Turtles, with their personalities, and you got to make sure when you're talking about the relationship with each other, you got to include their flaws, right? I mean, we all know Raph was a hothead and a loner. You know, Leo could get arrogant with his leadership.
Yeah.
Donatello was a
they're
know-it-all.
both just as hard headed.
Right.
Yeah.
Michelangelo's problem was he didn't take anything serious enough. And Splinter, they had, you know, in the old cartoon, they had a few episodes where Splinter would come down on Michelangelo because he would take his enemies lightly and he'd joke and have a fun time. They're like, no, this is a pretty serious situation, Mikey. You need to, you know,
Donnie
kick it in
get
gear.
too much into his head.
Yeah, Donnie would get into his head. Exactly. And so, you know, and you got to show these flaws, and then you have to let them take accountability for it. And that was the whole point of Master Splinter, was Master Splinter held them to a degree of accountability, to a level of expectation. And that's why they were able to overcome Shredder, and that's why they were able to have the discipline they needed to have to beat him. But that's also why they had to be all four together, because if any one of them, two or three, fought Shredder, he would win. You'd have to have all four of them together to
Well,
win.
you can't underestimate how badly they needed Vanilla Ice.
Yeah.
That was only to fight Super Shredder.
But
yeah.
Since we're done, go ahead. What were you gonna say, Dan?
I mean, just what I've seen, because we haven't gotten much. But first of all, yeah, I'm not a big fan of the art style. I wasn't a big fan of. I wasn't a big fan of Into the Spider-Verse, not just because of the art style, but because I think Miles Morales is the wet cloth of a character. I think he's probably the worst version of Spider-Man, and I grew up with Ben Reilly.
You like Ben Reilly better? Jeez.
Ben Reilly had a better story than Miles Morales does.
Oh
and see, Ben Reilly's not Spider-Man. I wouldn't call him Spider-Man. I'll call him the Scarlet Spider. But they're still trying to call Miles Morales Spider-Man. Like, why don't you call him something else? Like, there's a whole array of spiders that you could name him after or something, and we're still calling him Spider-Man, or they're trying to.
Call him the Recluse because he's a teenager.
Call him anything. Just, yeah. But it doesn't matter what you call him now,
you just
because
said
now
it because he's brown.
It doesn't matter what you call him now, because now he's always just going to be Miles Morales.
Right.
Like, because he tried to call him Spider-Man. That's the problem. Like, even Spider-Man 2099, we called him Spider-Man 2099. Like, that's different.
Yeah. You made sure you knew where he came from.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And even with the new one, I'm jumping around, I know, but the new one, they're trying so hard to make, what's his name, Miguel 2099? I forgot his name. Or Manuel, I forgot. I don't know.
Miguel was right.
They're trying so hard in the trailer to make him the bad guy. He's not going to be the bad guy. He's going to be.
No, I mean, he even says that in the most recent trailer that he's not. Yeah, he's just trying to stop Miles from throwing everything off.
Yeah, it's going to be him trying to bring order to something that he's trying to stop, and then, you know, I'm sure it'll work out and be fine. While I'm ranting, why Miles Morales is such a ripoff and such a flimsy throw, like a bone throw that no one asked for, and it's insulting that they gave him Peter Parker's ex-girlfriend as a girlfriend. That's just weird. So weird. Like, that's just, Spider-Gwen is a better Spider-Man alternative and a better story than Miles Morales ever was. And then they're like, oh, we'll give her to Miles Morales for some reason. It's just, anyway, but no, the Turtles, man. What I've seen of it, first of all, anything that's got Seth Rogen attached to it, I'm like immediately out of. Like,
Really?
yeah, I think he sucks.
I think he's really funny
I,
when he's in the right arena.
I think
he's funny.
I think he sucks, man. I think the best thing he ever did was Freaks and Geeks, and that was because everybody else carried him.
Man, I loved Pineapple Express, and I loved Knocked Up. I loved all those movies. Those are great.
Man,
He works better. He works best when he is being directed by somebody else.
Yeah.
Specifically Judd
Like-
Apatow.
Like the interview was great with James Franco
He
and all
also
that.
he works best as a side character. Like I think the funniest thing he ever did was the cop in Superbad.
Yeah.
Like he actually can be really funny. He's just he kind of has he can't have too much control of the story.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. Like, so I guess the animation I don't care for. I get that they're younger. That's fine. That's completely fine. I don't know why Donnie has glasses. Donnie has never had glasses that I can ever think of.
No, he doesn't need them.
Yeah, he's a ninja.
Which they made, harkening back to that, Dan, not to interrupt you, but they made they put Donnie with glasses, and they have a Transformer in the new Transformers movie who wears glasses. And I'm like, why do you wear glasses? You're a robot, dude. Like, that is so what horrible design. Oh, man.
I have a hard time with Transformers because like ever since Michael Bay made that first one, I never cared. Like no.
I liked the first one and I liked the third one. I liked the very first one and I liked Dark of the Moon. I thought they were great, but the second one was awful, and all the ones after Dark of the Moon were awful. Dark Side of the Moon, whatever you want to call it.
That's the reason I'm actually excited about this new one. Did you watch Bumblebee?
Yeah, Bumblebee was good.
See,
I forgot Bumblebee. Yeah, that was actually really good.
Yeah, Bumblebee was great. And Bumblebee went ahead and at the very beginning established the original like Generation 1 like designs for all the Transformers.
Yeah, they should never change.
This one continues
into this new one. Yeah, that's continuing into this one. Michael Bay is not really touching this at all.
Yeah.
And it's the same like old school Gen 1 approach to Optimus and RC. All of these characters, we're gonna have Unicron in this one, like an actual Unicron that looks like Unicron.
Yeah.
So I'm actually pretty psyched about it, like because I loved Bumblebee. I thought Bumblebee felt like a Transformers movie.
So here's my thing. Bumblebee was really good, and I did forget to mention that he's actually really good. The problem was Michael Bay, where it went off the rails, and it was pretty well documented, was that Michael Bay said that he was burned out after Extinction or Knights of the Fallen or whatever the heck it was.
After they ruined my boy Grimlock.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
They he said, well, it's burnout and I got tired of designing them, and you just got what you got. Well, thanks for giving us crap and spending all that money. It could have been put somewhere else. But
have someone
whatever.
Have someone else design it.
Right.
You're a director.
Here's the issue with this new set. While I love the Bumblebee, this is a reboot. This is going to count as a reboot. It takes place in the 90s, and it's counting as a reboot of the series. But they make no effort. It's the same director, so it's Michael Bay, but they make no effort to distinguish the old stuff from the new stuff. Like, at least when they did reboots of other movies, you could go into like a multiverse, or you could slip through time, or you could do something. But they don't even explain that.
No, Michael Bay did not direct Bumblebee, and he's not directing this new one either.
Oh, he's not doing this one either. Okay, no, that's right.
He is. I don't even think he's. Yeah, he's
alive.
Still a producer. He's still a producer on it, but like I don't think he's involved in driving it at all.
No, you're right. You're right. He's a producer.
They pretty much, when Bumblebee came out, they were pretty clear that it was going to be considered a soft reboot. Is how they described it, and that's why they did away with the Hot Rod Flame design on Optimus and went with the classic 80s designs for the Transformers. They let the visuals kind of differentiated as a new thing. In fact, the only thing that really carries over from the old series is Peter Cullen, but he was in the
and Bumblebee
Transformers
not
cartoon
talking.
first.
I'm
So
tired of that
like,
storyline.
yeah, so like if you watch Bumblebee, if you watch this one, they don't talk anything about like the All Spark or any of that stuff that Michael Bay introduced does not seem to be present in this or in Bumblebee.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, I think that it's pretty clear to anybody who's at least a fan of Transformers that it's a reboot. And then if you were a casual fan that just the older movies, you might scratch your head a little bit. But I don't think it's going to be like, I don't think it takes rocket science to figure out it's running a different storyline.
My issue with it is the design itself. I love how they have in Bumblebee how they redesigned the robots, and it looked promising at first because Mirage looked good. A lot of these guys looked good. But then you got the Transformer who wears glasses, which makes no sense. And then another reason on the design area is you got the Beast Wars. Those guys are there, and that's the whole purpose of Beast Wars was um they weren't there when the Autobots were there. They existed on prehistoric Earth. That was always the story, was that they were on prehistoric Earth and they were actually from the future. And they traveled back in time and accidentally went to prehistoric Earth. And they were charged with keeping the current Transformers that we know from the 80s and or that you see in the movies, they were charged with keeping them safe until they could find a way back home to Cybertron. And they never fought Unicron. The only Transformer from the originals who was with them was Starscream, and that's because Starscream hijacked the spark of Waspinator and hid inside of Waspinator, and and was just waiting to make his Master Stroke move, which they revealed like 2 or 3 seasons in. But
Yeah,
other than
I remember
that,
that.
yeah, but other than that, it had its own storyline. Now, pros and cons. A pro with the design of these new Transformers is that they are matched to the size of their vehicles. It's not like a sports car that turns into one giant hulking robot. It's
Yeah.
a sports car that's a robot that's proportioned to a sports car. Um, and that's why Optimus Prime is so much bigger than everyone else because an 18 wheeler is so much bigger than everything else.
Is it?
Mm-hmm.
It is.
You
But
sure about that?
here's the problem with the Beast Wars. Um, they in Beast Wars, they talk about on Cybertron, they started mixing organic and technology together, and they did
Nice.
this in Beast Machines, and they called it techno organic. I mean, it wasn't really original. I mean, pretty basic.
Technogasmic.
Yeah, and that's how in Beast Wars and in Beast Machines they were able to scan animals and take the form of animals, and they could have an organic
Yeah.
exterior with a robotic interior, and
Like
they would
Mark Zuckerberg.
yes, like that android, and but but the problem being was they were also proportionate in their series to the animals they scanned. Like AirRaiser
Yeah.
scanned a falcon, and she really was the size of a falcon.
Yeah.
Optimus Primal was always a gorilla, which they have, and Rhinox
Yeah.
a rhinoceros.
Megatron was a T-Rex.
But they were proportionate to the size
Yeah.
of the animal. Here, they're all just giant, massive robot animals, and I'm just like, that man. So not only are you not supposed to be, not only is Optimus Primal not even supposed to be in the same timeline as Optimus Prime, and he never fights Unicorn.
Unicorn.
He never fights Unicron with Optimus Prime. He's also not a giant machine ape. He's just like he looks like a regular gorilla that if you put him in the jungle, you wouldn't be able to tell the difference of one to the other. He would blend in. He would blend in with another family of apes. And they would,
Well,
only the apes
I
would know. So
I'll say this:
I
like
have a lot of issues with the design.
until we see the movie, we don't know how they end up in the same timeline. So that doesn't necessarily mean that they screwed that up. And
But they should.
also,
I don't know.
live action is a different medium, so I don't have a problem with them making shifts to the lore or whatever to be able to introduce things. As long as it makes sense within the context of the story they tell, I'm fine with it.
I don't know. I just, you know, Optimus Prime shouldn't even be alive for the fight with Unicron. I mean, we never know; they might kill him. But everyone that when
He's
Unicron
already
was
died.
first, well, when Unicron was first introduced in '84 in the original Transformers movie, he was Optimus Prime. That was the big shock. Remember, that was the big gotcha
I mean,
part. Was Optimus
I
Prime died in the first 5 minutes, and it was Hot Rod who became
mean,
Rodimus Prime, and he
yeah, I
had to
get
lead
where
the
you're coming
Autobots to
from,
defeat.
Great
but
story,
see,
by
here's
the
the
way.
thing.
Yeah.
Here's the thing, though. That story's been told already.
Yep.
So, like, I don't see what the point would be in telling that story again.
Which goes back to what I was saying at the introduction. Then why are we even doing a Transformers movie anyway?
Because they need money. Which let's go back into what you were saying though, because you opened it about Disney, and that because that's an easy thing to do because Disney has just been trash.
Yeah.
For years now. Um,
And
gosh, for
Warner
a
with
long
Disney.
time now.
I mean, Warner with DC and Disney with Marvel. Those are the two.
the
Star
reason, well, the
Wars
reason,
and
the
everything
reason
else
Disney,
by.
the reason Disney's been so prominent with trash is because their entire movie franchise for 80 years has been remakes. It started with Snow White. It started with remakes of old stories, and then of course you had a couple of years where they made original things, kind of like Labyrinth, Dark Crystal with Jim Henson, and then they did, they went back to their roots with Little Mermaid, Aladdin, and Lion King, taking old fables and doing them really well. And then after that, it just kind of get worse and worse and worse with Tangled, which Tangled was good, but I'm saying like that was like the last peak for me.
Right.
And
Toy
then,
Story, all four Toy Stories
yeah,
were
but
great for me.
that's because they bought that. That wasn't
Right.
theirs.
That was Pixar.
Yeah, but that's what Disney did. They've just defaulted back to soulless. We buy, consume, and regurgitate, and buy it because we're Disney. Disney right now is just a rebranding machine. They just get something, throw their stamp on it, and say buy it because it's Disney, and that didn't work. So they tried to do it with Star Wars and said, "Hey, it's Star Wars, buy it now." And then people kind of did, and then they didn't. Like now they're not, and I don't blame them. Like I don't know, they're so creatively bankrupt. It's astounding because there's talented people there. They have the most talented people in every technical field. It's just like either they won't let them do their creative job or they don't have any creative people, and I don't know which
Well,
one it
they
is.
rush them. They rush them and rush them and rush them to get something out as fast as possible. And what they've done with Marvel, and what they've done with Star Wars 2 is that they flood the market with too much of it. So like you have 5 different TV series of stuff to watch to be able to watch the next Marvel movie. You need to have seen WandaVision, and you need to have seen the She-Hulk show, and you need to have seen the Winter Soldier show and Falcon show, so you can watch the new Captain America. They flood you with so much stuff and so many Marvel movies a year, and nobody wants to see any of them. And it was better when they had, when Marvel movies were an event.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I liked Phase 1
and leading to something that mattered.
Right.
Phase 1 of the MCU I thought was fantastic.
Oh,
I never
yeah.
had
That
an
was
issue with anything on Phase 1. In fact, I remember the
Phase
first
1
Iron
was
Man was
definitely
awesome.
Phase 1 was the best, but see, Disney didn't own it yet. And then honestly, the Marvel movies work for me. They're not perfect, but they work and have moments of absolute greatness all the way up through Infinity Wars and Endgame. And after that point, and it's because and I loved the Loki show. I thought the Loki show was really good. But so much of the other stuff that they put out on the TV stuff on Disney Plus has not been good.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Star Wars wise, I like The Mandalorian a lot.
Yeah.
And I like I like Andor.
Andor
But
was great.
The reason Mandalorian works is because of Favreau and Dave, Filoni?
What worked was everything that Lucas set out 40 years ago.
Exactly. Yeah, the stuff that works with Star Wars is the stuff that feels like classic Star Wars and plays by the same visual cue, the same. There are tropes that are associated with Lucas' version of Star Wars that work, and people love it, and people are there for it. And when you throw that stuff out, nobody cares.
Well, two things with that. First of all, I'm trolling Hans in the messages. That's why he's a little distracted. Second, Stephen Crowley and I discussed this on the last podcast when we were talking about the prequels, where what made Lucas work so well was that he took from older sources that worked already. He studied history of film. He studied history of stories. Disney is just taking Star Wars and trying to make Star Wars from Star Wars. And the reason Mandalorian worked is because they went full force into what Lucas touched on, which was a space western. And he only kind of went there for part of it with Han Solo. But then they were like,
they turned it into Have Gun Will Travel.
Yeah, and then I think if the only thing, I don't think Mando's going to do great. I didn't see this last season. I've watched like the first 4 episodes, and it became the Bo-Katan show, which I love Bo-Katan, but I think maybe that could work better in a different story. I think they should have had him.
I loved it. The finale was incredible.
I haven't seen that.
It was really good.
But
it was really good.
I think the best way to have kept that show alive, if you really wanted to keep it alive, have him give Grogu to Luke, probably never see Grogu ever again.
Yeah,
and then
I agree with that.
Season 3, go back to he's a traveling gunman. And maybe start branching out some of the bigger stuff, but I don't know. I mean, it was a western, an old school kind of western, and then they just they're like, now that it's making money, we got to tie everything to it. Was what happened.
Yeah. Well, they're tying Ahsoka to it, so
yeah, which you don't need to. You have like 7 seasons of her. Like, she doesn't need the Mandalorian. She's already established. Right. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. Yeah, and that's where they're going to bring in Grand Admiral Thrawn, and he's going to exist.
Yeah, they've announced
which could have been great.
They're doing a new trilogy of movies, and the first one's Heir to the Empire. So we'll see how badly they'll ruin that.
Which is going to be your girl Mary Sue's going to be back in it. So she's already signed on for the new trilogy.
Oh, they're really doing Heir to the Empire with her?
Yeah,
that's
they
so
are.
Awful.
She already confirmed. They did like a was it like a Star Wars Day?
Yeah.
May the 4th, Star Wars Day.
Yeah.
And she did like this whole press conference thing and confirmed it.
I didn't know that was going to be Heir to the Empire. Which doesn't make sense.
At the time, they hadn't announced that. They announced that like this past week, I think.
It doesn't make sense because, and here's the thing, and we talked about this briefly, is that, and I made a video on it. Rey's not even a Mary Sue; she's just a golem. Like, she's worse. Like, she's not even a character. Like, she's not even a human. She's just this thing. But
she screams in British.
She's awful. And I would like to say it's the actress's fault, but it's not, because like there weren't any bad.
She is actually a pretty decent actor.
She is a good actor. If you watch other stuff that she's in that's not Star Wars, she's actually really good.
John Boyega was great in Attack the Block, and then
I love that movie.
Yeah.
Oh,
Oscar Isaac's great all on his own.
Great actor, but then they just. Man, I don't know. I'm not excited about any of these movies. I'm not making this personal, but like for you guys, like, you know, even if you kind of want to see some of them, if this was 15 years ago and we hadn't gone through tons of crap, what would you think about like these trailers that you just saw? Like, would you even consider watching them, or would you be like, that doesn't look good? It just looks better than the crap we've gotten before.
I don't know, because the very first time I ever saw Transformers live action, I thought that first movie it blew my mind. I didn't even know. Yeah, I mean, I literally walked out the movie theater and was like, "Oh, this car's going to turn into a robot next to me."
I almost cried when Peter Cullen started the initial like narration at the beginning. Yeah. Hearing his voice again, I almost cried in the theater.
Yeah.
And I think with Ninja Turtles, I'm always going to be apprehensive, because we already have a great movie when we were kids that came out.
Yeah, perfect.
Off of an already amazing cartoon.
Yeah.
with a great toy line.
I honestly feel like this new Ninja Turtles I think they felt like they had to do this to make up for, like, to repair the damage from those two Michael Bay ones.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, the Ninja Turtles is
Those
a
were
little
so
different.
bad.
Ninja Turtles is a little different because they relaunched that entire franchise like every 5 years.
Right.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
not unusual to get a new Turtles.
It's weird to get a new movie.
Yeah.
And
Usually
Yeah.
it's like in a form of a series or something like that.
I am glad
Yeah,
that
I think
got
they're just trying to undo the
yeah.
damage.
We already have a good live action one, so like we're good, you know.
Hmm.
I don't know, man.
If they did another live action one, I'd want it to be the Last Ronin.
Yeah,
I
that'd be
wouldn't
good.
because it's all about Raphael, and I
No,
hate
it's about
Raphael.
Michelangelo.
What about Michelangelo, dude?
Yeah,
I thought it
he's
was
the
Last Ronin was
No, it's
Raphael,
Michelangelo. Everybody
Yeah.
else is dead.
Yeah.
and it was painted in red, right?
Mm-hmm.
No.
Yeah. So I was at Barnes and Noble's.
You're thinking
and
of like the black, white, and red one, or whatever.
well,
The,
I was
the
at
cover.
Yeah,
The cover
the
is black,
IDW
white, and
cover
red,
is
but
black, white, red. Yeah.
well, the entire series. When I opened it up, it was all red.
Yeah, but it's
Nah,
it's
bro.
Michelangelo.
Okay. I never
Yeah.
read it. I just assumed it was all red, and Raphael was the only red
Yeah.
guy I knew. So it's like, oh, great, Raphael's story.
It's not. It's
Yeah, it's
it's about
Michelangelo.
Mikey.
Okay, I stand corrected.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's really good.
You get serious for a change.
Yeah, 'cause
Yeah.
all his brothers are dead.
Yeah, yeah.
He
I
still
mean, I
kinda
gather
has
that.
them.
With all
He's
the
still like
weapons.
he's still sort of like he sees them and hears them even though they're not there.
Yeah.
It's really good, man.
Mm.
I just think there's other franchises you could do now. That's what
Yeah.
I've been trying to think about. I mean, I hate to say go into anime because I definitely don't want to see a live action Akira movie. That's
I could do a live action Voltron. I would be down with that.
yeah.
They keep trying, man.
Battle Angel Alita proved you can do something good. You just got to get
Mhm.
James Cameron to do it, or someone of that
Or somebody-
caliber.
Well, Cameron produced it and Robert Rodriguez directed it.
Yeah, but I'm saying you got to have someone of
And it
that
was
caliber involved in
Yeah.
it. Yeah, and
Yeah,
take
but
that
it
long
was
to do
really
it.
good.
Yeah,
Mhm.
Yeah, it was really good, and of course we don't get a sequel to that.
he said he might, but I mean,
Mm.
like the Mario movie wasn't bad. I'll probably never watch it again unless like my kid wants to watch it.
I've never seen it. I have yet to watch it.
It's not
I
bad, but
enjoyed it.
I feel like if you took that formula and just somewhere between it and Sonic, and then you ratcheted it up just a little bit, you could have like an amazing Mega Man movie.
Mhm.
I heard Sonic was actually pretty good. I
It's
never
not bad. I mean, I
watched
liked Sonic 1 and 2. They're not bad. Like I'll watch them, but like they're definitely not as good as the movies we got as kids.
it. Yeah.
Right.
You know?
What I really would love to see is like a Legend of Zelda movie that's given the same amount of care that Dungeons and Dragons Honor Among Thieves got.
Yeah,
Yeah.
man, that movie was great. That movie was awesome.
There was a fan-made Legend of Zelda trailer years
I remember
ago.
that.
Years ago that looked awesome. And I
Mhm.
think it was Ocarina of Time.
Mhm.
I think what Nintendo's not going to do it. I don't think they ever would, but they should license out like Majora's Mask as an anime or something like
Dude.
that. For like Netflix or maybe not Netflix or something, but something like that. You know what I mean? They should do something like
That
that.
would be really cool.
Yeah, a live action Zelda movie could be good. It's just, maybe not have Link talk. Like, I don't.
I think they would do it. I think there would be a really good if they turn it into a space horror, approach it like they did Alien, and do Metroid Prime,
That'd be cool.
and
could be really good, too.
have Samus all by herself.
Yep, do
like,
an
alone.
isolated Samus. Yeah,
and it's just like it's a living hell to get through. It's almost like
if they could
Doom,
do half
where
of,
she has to fight through demons. And
if they could
space
do
aliens.
half of Wally with no dialogue, you could do a Metroid
Mhm.
movie. Especially since
Yeah.
she'd be finding like the code, like she'd be finding like recordings of all that kind of stuff and all that kind of stuff, and she could be keeping a diary. Like you could do it really well.
Mhm.
But I mean, but that
Mhm.
takes creativity and risk and fun, and that they're not gonna do that. Like no one's ever gonna do something cool like that.
That's because no one's. I don't think. don't think anyone in the industry would be given the time to do something like that.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone wants something so fast. A lot of the problem with these artists is these artists have every bit the talent to do really cool things like this,
Yeah, but not the green
but
light.
they don't have the green light, and and a lot of them, these things, they don't just happen overnight, and these production companies want them to happen overnight.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
For cheap
so yeah.
and turn a profit.
Right. And until, I mean, and that's never going to not going to happen. I was going to say until they stop doing that for profit, but that's never going to be the case. I mean, it's always going to be, it's a business first, right?
Matt Damon made a
So,
really good point on some comedian show where he's like,
Matt Damon.
where he was like, you don't have middle-sized movies anymore. He said, and that's where you're breaking up, Josh. Say it again.
Everything has to be a blockbuster now.
Mm-hmm.
A big tentpole franchise thing.
I think
that's
some of
why
that.
That's why Dungeons and Dragons felt good, was because it didn't feel like it was setting up another movie. It was just a good standalone movie that was lovingly made.
Well,
Yeah, well, and
yeah,
and I was gonna say the whole thing with what you were saying was, a lot of that comes from the age of streaming. People aren't going to go to see a movie unless it's a blockbuster because they can't justify leaving their streaming devices, especially when the pandemic occurred, and then you could start streaming movies direct instead of going to the theaters because theaters just weren't open. And so now people are like, well, I'm just going to wait an extra 3 months till movie A hits Netflix or HBO, Max or whatever, and then I'll just stream it then, and then not pay anything for it. So it's almost like these movie companies, not in addition to the speed, not giving their artists time to produce, they also feel like they have to overproduce because they're not going to get you in the movie theater unless it's the next biggest mind-blowing thing you've ever experienced.
But the thing is, that's a lie, and that's
you think so?
But yeah, I'm not saying you're lying. I'm saying they've believed that because Top Gun put people in seats, Mario put people in seats. Like, it doesn't take much, and I'm not saying farm nostalgia, but if you make something, maybe for new things, it's very hard for new things to go to theaters. But here's what's happened: like it's all inverted. New things should start online and grow until they become big exclusive things. That's how it's always been. Like, that's how when the internet first started, that's how new things came about. And of course, now the internet's been co-opted. There's only like 4 sites on the internet people go to. Me outside of like Facebook, Twitter, YouTube, and like Wikipedia. How many sites do you actually go to unless you're Googling how to make like a carrot cake? On average. And and like I said, I've stated before on this, just because I'll say all this. I'm not a fan of conservative talking heads. But the business model they built from out of YouTube and social media, because they were getting banned, whether rightfully or not, that's for them to decide and argue for their case, and the social media sites to argue for their case. And I'm not talking far crazy guys. I'm talking like the Ben Shapiro's of the world. They built their own parallel economy online, and people pay for their content for some reason.
Yeah, they flock to them. Actually, about half the nation. It's about 50% of the country.
Now, I'm not ripping all I'm not getting into politics here. I'm just saying that those particular guys that I call talking heads, I'm not a fan of. I'm not a fan of talking heads on any side. But people pay for them, and they didn't have Twitch because Twitch was banning these guys left and right. If you speak left wing bullcrap, Twitch will let you on there forever. So. What I'm saying is they built their own business model and proved. I mean, the Daily Wire, which I'm not a huge fan of at all, they're making movies now, and I don't know if they're good. I haven't seen them, but I mean, like what Hans just said, I mean, even guys like Tucker Carlson, who was on mainstream, these guys have audiences, and some of their and these guys are bringing in. If you took the people that watch those guys and put them in one place for like a weekend, for like a movie event. It's insane, like the percentage of equality that would be to a blockbuster movie as far as comparing equalities of profit margin. Does that make sense? I know I said that terribly.
Look how well that special event for the Snyder Cut or
Yeah,
Snyder Justice
but
League stuff
what
went.
I was saying is that's a known product though. That's why I left that out.
Oh yeah.
But I'm saying
So
these guys made a quote unquote new product, even though it's like just Rush
Mm-hmm.
Limbaugh,
mhm.
and found an audience. And some guys like Razor Fist and um, Eric July, Young Ripper are doing that. However you feel about those guys, at least I know they're basically making products to sell to an audience they already have, and that's not going to work. What we've got to get back to, what I'm saying is all those guys at least found a way to make money and
Yeah.
fight against the big four social media companies or however many there are.
Mm-hmm.
It proves that we still kind of have that Western old school internet style of things where like you can make a cool corner of the internet for yourself and have fans and customers. And that's what we're doing,
Mm-hmm.
but people can do that. I'm not saying you're wrong, Hans. I'm saying
No,
these
you're right.
these big companies, to me, they should be just making cool stuff, throwing it in theaters, and they could make it. They could turn a profit, but they won't do that. They think they move so slowly. They're still reacting to the pandemic, like you said, when we're out of it.
Right. And so that made me think when you were saying that, it made me think um about Donald Trump, which, I would in no way endorse any candidate or anything, not in public, but also, I have I'm not endorsing anybody.
Yeah.
But what I'm saying is what
Well, I
he
don't vote,
did.
so there we go.
I do vote. I'm very active, but
Yeah.
and among the people who know me, they know where my stances are and they know who I'm for and against, and that's nobody's business who I'm putting this out for. But for Donald Trump, while I have my issues with him and I'm not his biggest fan by any means, what he did is exactly what you said. He created True Social.
Yeah.
And I'm a news junkie because that's my field, news media and reporting and stuff like that. That's my daytime job if I ever can get one. That'll be
Yeah.
my daytime job. I got the degree. I just need the employment. Anybody looking to hire a guy, I'm here to report news or at least do public relations. Anyway,
Clean
but
your
what they
pool.
He's a good lore
yeah
master.
yeah I'm a good lore master. So anyway, uh, what all these news companies did is they always refer to him on Twitter, and then Twitter canceled him.
Mm-hmm.
So then he moves over and creates True Social, his own personalized social media site where all of his followers can follow him. And guess who
Mm-hmm.
follows him? All the news
All the
organizations
same
who
guys. Yep.
criticized him. And in order to report on what Donald J. Trump is doing for the next presidential election, they all
Mm-hmm.
have to log in to his stuff, which gives him
Mm-hmm.
clicks, which gives him
Right.
his money. And so you got these guys like the Stephen Colbert's of the world, or whoever, and they're like, look at this jackass on True Social. And I'm like,
Yeah.
look at you logging in to see what he's doing
Yeah.
to begin with.
Well, that's
Exactly.
the
Like,
thing.
and and
The
yeah,
companies that are parasitic have convinced everybody that they're like the star makers when they're
right.
Mm-hmm.
not. Like, and I hate to use the term parasitic, but I can't think of another term for it. Like, they rely on talent, or at
Yeah,
least star power, but they've
right.
convinced everybody that star power and talent relies on them. And that is
Yeah.
not how it goes. If you make something cool and dope, it might even be small, but like they need something. These big
Mm-hmm.
machines, all they can do is grab and promote, and
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
yeah, that's it. It's if you have to get philosophical about it, it just kind of proves like the great men of history view. Like like
Mm-hmm.
it takes this one thing or this idea or this talent, this thing, and everything else kind of reacts to it and profits off of it. But
Right.
we're not getting that. We're not getting talent. We have these parasitic corporations trying to churn it out, but they don't have it. They're throwing out coal, and they're not getting gold or diamonds because they don't have it. They thought they had it, and they don't.
hmm
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's very interesting how that machine worked,
Yeah,
and people who are quick to criticize people in that medium like a Shapiro or like a Trump. The first person to do it was Rush Limbaugh, because
mm-hmm.
Rush
Mm-hmm.
Limbaugh, he overtook radio, and
Yeah,
he made whether you
yeah. Whether you agree
are
with him or
conservative
not,
or
yeah,
not, it doesn't matter. He took the radio world and created his own world because he couldn't get on TV because this was before Fox News existed. I mean, we all know you got the Fox News, the Newsmax, and all those guys. Those are all conservative leaning, productions now.
Yeah.
But before they weren't there, and when they weren't there and they didn't exist, you had nothing else. So what Rush did was Rush said, "Well, fine, I'll own the radio waves."
You don't
And
have
him
you
and a
don't have
whole
to
slew
agree
of
with
others did.
you don't have to agree with that person or like them to be like, this guy found how to do something. In fact, that's how, if you're that cynical and you hate that guy, you should adopt his method. That's how warfare works.
Yeah, you should run him off the radio waves.
Not to get Machiavellian, but adopt his tactic, do it better, and turn it against him. I'm not saying do that, but at least be cynical about
You mean
it.
how to
That's why
You mean how to
everything
counter
we
AI?
own was made in China.
What's that? What's that?
That's why everything we own was made in China.
Yeah, exactly. At least understand. I don't know, especially as an artist. I mean, good artists steal. I'm not saying like not be original, but I'm saying if you see something working, take it, integrate it, improve it, and then do it yourself.
We have a word for that. It's called inspiration.
Yeah.
I mean, and only nothing comes from nothing.
Competition.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. And the only thing that comes from nothing is nothing. So everybody is inspired by something. It doesn't matter what it is, if it's art, if it's language, if it's anything is inspired from something. So everybody takes from somebody at some point. I don't think there's such a thing as a truly original idea, because parts of everything have to come from somewhere.
Well,
that's you can make an original-esque thing.
Well, yeah, that's a whole esoteric idea we could go down, but let's do that later.
But back to how we translate that back to the Transformers and all that stuff. I think that's how you beat these constant recreations, because nostalgia only goes so far. They're playing off people's nostalgia, and it only goes so far. Eventually you're going to run out of material, and these artists that want to create this new material, that want to get these things out of the hands of the giant corporations, they got to. It's easier said than done. I could sit here and say it all day, and it just be impossible to do. But somehow they got to figure out how to say, we got to create a different medium, and we got to do it better than they do.
Well, yeah, exactly. And here's what people don't want to talk about. And I'm not trying to get to politics. I'm just doing this timeline, this pipeline. That's just because it's what people do.
It's a narrative.
The big people that are making stuff now that are not part of the mainstream, quote unquote. They always say culture is down, or politics is downstream from culture. Culture is downstream from the individual, because culture is. So what you need to do if you want to change those things, I'm not saying you should change those things, but this is what they always talk about. If you want to make things do cool stuff, make something cool, get 5 people to like it. Maybe in 20 years, those 5 people are now 1,500. But if there's 17 cells of that kind of stuff, that becomes like a culture. That becomes like a scene. And then somewhere...
It becomes a cult following.
Exactly. And somewhere between that, someone's going to make a platform for it. A fan of that is going to build a platform. That platform is going to become the new counterculture. Eventually, it's going to become the mainstream culture.
Right.
That's how everything works.
That happened with music.
That happens. And again, Josh and I talk about that a lot.
Everything always happens with music first.
Everything happens with music first, and it happens quicker in music.
Look at all the bands that inspire us. I mean, look at all what we consider classic bands. The Creedence Clearwaters, the Rushes of the world, the Led Zeppelins of the world. That was all like counterculture. That was all. That was all on the outside looking in.
Even more so, it was counterculture.
Yeah, and now it's and now everybody says that's the greatest of all time, right? I mean, they put them in that echelon. They put them in that ranking.
It's just such a totalitarian.
It always does start with music.
Now it's just such a totalitarian state that you're not allowed a counterculture. There is more pressure against the counterculture now than there ever has been, because the culture that's in power now is more vicious than the last one was.
Well, and we're what this is creating in a world where it's almost a world where you're damned if you do and you're damned if you don't.
Yeah, but that's how the world's always been.
Right. If you adhere to the culture, you're damned for watering yourself down. And you're at the behest of whoever is wanting to control you. But if you go against them, then you're at their wrath anyway. Either way, you're at their wrath, whether it's under control or it's an outright rebellion. You're under their wrath. So if you're gonna get screwed either way, then just do what you want to do.
Well, the thing is,
and,
I'm not trying to get. It's all this is so because the current way of things is so politicized because it wanted to make everything politicized. The only reason that you have to address politics now is because people drug politics into everything, and they did that on purpose because that's what totalitarian ideologies do, and they do that.
They can control you.
Yeah, they make everything political so they can use political force against you. So here's how this works.
Not progressives. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
It is progressives, and that's left and right wing. We've had this discussion before. People think that progressive is just a left wing thing, but it's not. It's a right wing thing. Progressive is just someone who thinks there's an end of history, and you're pushing history towards it.
Right.
And reactionary can be on either. These terms are just dumb. They're just stupid terms that we take for granted.
Yeah.
But anyway, all that to say, the counterculture of the 60s, the reason it was so successful is because it was going up against at least a pseudo liberal idea that all ideas are on some level of validity and should be listened to and should be experienced. It was kind of a soft pushback. We don't have that now. No one is facing a liberal mainstream now. We're facing an illiberal mainstream that hates and is vicious and is not tolerant. Or and
it's so funny they disguise it as tolerance, and
everything's a lie.
Right, and that's the whole thing. Back to all these original, or back to all these art things that we're talking about. These
it's all tied together now.
These Barbies and these Transformers and Turtles movies that we're talking about, where things that either don't need to be made are being made, or things that have already been made are overdone and rehashed. It's okay to tolerate nostalgia, but it's not okay to tolerate originality.
Yeah,
and I think that's it.
Originality is dangerous. You don't know where it's going.
Right. And at one time, all this stuff was original, but that was back during a time when it was okay to be original. So people are like, well, somebody had to create Transformers. Yeah, somebody did create Transformers in the early 80s when it was okay to do so.
Well, there was, again, there was some pushback, of course. I remember when grunge happened, of course, there were particularly right-wing pundits being like, why are these kids whining? I don't know why they sound like David Lynch and Bane. I don't know why I did that.
Because that's what they sound like.
But they did get pushback, But it was a more liberal, in the classical sense, pushback of we're disagreeing over ideas. And of course, there were some particularly right-wing political people that tried to ban video games and this kind of stuff. But we also seem to conveniently forget that it was like Tipper Gore that on the left that was the one wanting to ban music and all this kind of stuff. We don't talk about that, and they want to doom ban all this kind of stuff.
Wasn't she the one that went after Dee Snider?
Yeah, he put her in her place too. Despite his flaws, that man did stand up for himself then. But none of that's important to me as an artist. It's just get out of my way and let me create. But
exactly. And to bring it around, we are the Godfo Universe podcast. That's what Dan and I and everyone else is involved in this venture. That's what we're trying to do, is carve out our own little corner of the zeitgeist here and make something that's new, that's cool, that hopefully a few people will love enough to be obsessed with it.
We want you to like our site and come in our stuff more than you want to click on Twitter.
Right.
And I'm going to go off on a little bit of rant because, I've got time. We got time tonight, and it all ties together with this. Man, if you're relying on Indiegogo and you're relying on Kickstarter and you're relying on scene, and this is something going back to music again, if you're relying on a scene, if you're relying on a community, if you're relying on other creators, you're not going to do anything cool. You need to make a testament. You need to make a stone.
Yeah, because you can't Because the second you do something that stands out, that community
They're gonna turn
eats
on
you
you
alive.
because either out of jealousy or out of maliciousness or anger or some stupidity. There's gonna be a reason. Crabs pulled each other into buckets. You gotta build your own bucket. And we're not gonna get that from Disney. We're not gonna, you know, Disney will buy something 30 years later and try to like resurrect it.
You know what you were saying reminded me of a scene on Forrest Gump of all things, and it was Forrest couldn't find any shrimp when he first went out.
Yeah.
And they said, well, maybe you just need to name your ship. Okay, well, I'll go name my ship. And he still couldn't find shrimp after he named his ship. But a giant hurricane came in, and he went out to sea when everyone came into port to anchor.
Yep.
And everyone got wrecked, and he was the only one out there, so there was no more competition for him. So he reaped the benefit of taking that risk.
Yeah, you got to go into the storm.
Yeah, he went into the storm, took the risk, and that's when Lieutenant Dan has his infamous come
to Jesus moment.
Come to Jesus moment where he's cursing at God in the storm and come and get me and all this other kind of stuff. But that's kind of what that is. That's kind of what that does. And that's how you have to approach it. You have to be no holds bar, and you have to say, look, you guys are playing it safe by coming into port and by dropping anchor and by hiding inside your community and hiding behind your walls and waiting till it's safe to come out where you can feel comfortable.
That's your right. That's your right.
Yeah.
Stay out of
which you can do that. Yeah. But if you really want to make a change, if you really want to make an impact, I mean, I'm not going to say go be Forrest Gump, but, go be Forrest Gump. Go ride that boat out into the storm and do what you got to do to make it happen. And,
Yeah, people are going to hate you. It doesn't
matter.
Yeah,
people are going to hate you. They hated him. They didn't even believe him that he was a millionaire. And she's I'm sitting beside a millionaire. He's like, well, yeah, you are, but all right.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I don't know. There's an interesting parallel there.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And man, a lot of you have to accept that all this stuff is together, and like people are gonna throw rocks at you. You can, I guess I don't vote, and people hate my political views. It's like, I'm not contributing to it. How could you hate it? But it's stuff like that. It doesn't matter, man. If you exist, something's going to be mad that you exist. And if you walk, someone's going to be mad that you're not crawling. And if you run, someone's going to be mad you're not walking. That's just how it is. And that's how it's always going to be.
Well, not everyone's going to like you. And that's actually a thing that I learned in leadership course. I was, when I did my time in the military, to even when I was helping being part of a management team on a pharmacy. The one thing we always learned in every leadership course we took is that not everybody's going to like you. So stop trying to make everybody like you.
Yeah.
Just do what you in terms of your job. Just do your job and do what you need to do. In terms of if you're trying to be an artist and create original things and put new things out there, just do what you're going to do, and then some people will like you and some people won't, and then just get over yourself and just keep doing what you want to do and keep yourself inspired, keep yourself to the task.
The crowd will always bend to the lowest common denominator.
Yeah. And everybody will always rise, and as quick as you rise, you'll burn. Because everybody loves the fall more than they love a rise. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? Everyone loves to watch the person on top fall. They live for that. That's happening to Taylor Swift right now. Yeah, that's happening to Taylor Swift right now. I started seeing on Facebook today, so I Googled it, and I'm like, why is everybody saying cancel Swift, or
is it cause she
not
sucks?
Even cancel Swift? No, actually, all right, well, we'll get into that in a minute. But no, she, because I'm going to reveal something to you guys in a minute. But no, she is with, she divorced her husband, and she's with another guy.
She had a husband?
With these different guys. Yeah, she had a husband. And
I don't know about
she and I thought she was married. I thought she married to a guy for a long time that she was with. Is anyway, this new guy she's with is a guy named Healy, and he was on a radio show where the host of the radio show made derogatory racial comments about Hawaiian Pacific Islanders and black people, and he laughed along and
All
had
right,
a good
hold
time
on.
with it.
That's a wide range of cultures. Who was
And
this guy? I've got to see what he
her
said.
her current boyfriend, Matt Healy, he laughed along with the radio hosts were the ones
Is
who
he the
were
guy from the
podcast. It's a podcast, I'm sorry.
1975 or whatever?
Yeah,
Who's
that guy.
Matt Healy?
That's who she's. Yeah, that's him from
All
1975.
right,
The
hold on.
1975.
Maddie Healy.
That's her
Oh,
boyfriend.
it's Maddie Healy. Sorry,
Maddie
guys.
Healy.
Maddie Healy.
That's Taylor's
Okay.
boyfriend. And
All
there was a
right.
podcast.
I'm gonna
The
put
two hosts
I'm
of
gonna
the
put Maddie
podcast,
Healy racist and see what comes up. I gotta see this.
and they were making the two hosts were making derogatory comments, and he was laughing along with it.
Oh, how dare
And
he?
because Taylor Swift didn't speak out about it, now they're saying, Taylor Swift, if you don't say anything about your boyfriend being racist, which he's not, but that's what they're saying, because he laughed along, then they're like, then you're going to get canceled. So all over Facebook today, I've seen cancel Taylor Swift, cancel Taylor Swift. Hey Taylor, you're dating a racist. You
What
know?
did he
And my
say?
moment of revolution is I'm actually a Swiftie.
Well,
I love Taylor Swift.
while he
So-
was a guest, while he was a guest on this podcast episode, Healy laughed as the host Friedland and Nick Mullen.
Yeah.
Who's Nick Mullen? I think is he a comedian? Let me see.
Yeah, they're comedians, and they made I don't know. They made comedians can't be comedians right
I don't
now.
know who Nick
So
Mullen is. Anyway, made fun of rapper Ice Spice, 23,
who
using
Taylor's currently doing a collab with right now. That's why they referenced her, or I've referenced Ice Spice.
using I don't know who that is.
Yeah.
Using derogatory
Yeah.
terms about her body and ethnicity. They called her an Inuit Spice Girl and chubby Chinese lady. That's not even really funny. Like maybe in context it would be funnier, but
yeah.
Sometimes when you read stuff in the text, it's even funny.
Well, they brought it up
funny.
because they're doing a collaboration together, and so since Maddie Healy is now Taylor Swift's boyfriend, I don't know. Somehow they made that connection. But he laughed about it.
They also used faux Chinese and Hawaiian accents to mock her. That could be funny in context. Healy didn't participate in the bulk of it, but he egged them on and laughed. When they did offensive accents mocking her, he chuckled and said, "Yeah, that's what Ice Spice is like." So he encouraged them and found amusement in their comments. He also did a mock Japanese accent. How dare you!
All right, here's the thing.
Okay.
What bothers me about any of this stuff, and I could care less about Taylor Swift or if you like her or don't like her.
I was talking about the fall. I was talking about this is the fall.
Well, I know, I agree.
Right.
I know. My thing is this. I do not care if anybody wants to cancel me because they said, well, I didn't do what they thought I should have done or say what they thought I should have said. Like the fact that you can now be canceled for not saying or not reacting the way somebody thinks you should have is absolutely ridiculous.
Dude.
Well, see, that's the thing. She has no comment.
I gotta interrupt you guys.
Saying she is.
I found the funniest part of this that no one's talking about. I'm sorry to interrupt y'all. This is funny.
Yeah, go ahead.
Part of the offenses was the R word. Healy himself didn't use it, but one of the co-hosts referred to Scottish as retard English.
I'll laugh at that. That's hilarious.
My Scottish Irish self will laugh at this. Healy agreed and said it's just like medieval speak. All right, are we? Oh, come on. All right, hold on. Give me a second. Where's he from? Like, where's he from in England? Because he's.
I don't know where he's from.
From in England. Where is he from? He's from Northwest Cheshire, so that's pretty posh, isn't it?
I don't know. It sounds like it should be.
Yeah, he's got that London kind of accent. So, like, I mean, you're gonna expect that like a London posh English dude to not make fun of the Scottish. Come on.
Well, but here's the thing: everybody craves that fall, and how much you want to bet people have been waiting in the wings for someone of Taylor Swift's category to make an excuse to try to do something to her, whether or not you like her music. The fact that she's getting annihilated because she didn't take a stance whether 2 or 4, her boyfriend or whatever. That's just stupid. She's a
I promise
bystander. She
you,
had
it
nothing
won't
to do
hurt
with
her.
what was going on.
It's not gonna hurt her.
No, it should be
No.
fine. Nobody's gonna
I
care.
promise you, it's not
I'm
gonna.
It's
sorry,
not,
Dan.
Dude,
it's not gonna hurt him.
No.
There are
the
too
best thing
many.
you can do is ignore people like that.
There are too many rabid white girls that love this guy.
You can be rabid white guys. I'm a huge Taylor Swift fan.
I meant him, the Matt Healy
Oh,
dude.
okay. That's I'm a really big
Japanese.
Taylor
One of the
Swift fan.
co-hosts brought up the topic of the Holocaust. Ooh, that's not a good topic to bring up.
No.
And asked if any Japanese people were working at the camps. Presumably, that's a stupid question. They had their own camps. I do really want to hear your impression of that, said Healy, laughing, apparently finding an impression of a Japanese Nazi to be hilarious. Yeah, that's not funny. Like, I'm not saying that because it's offensive. Like, that's just not a funny, because it's not historically accurate. Like, if we could talk about the Japanese war crimes of World War II. They were pretty awful.
Yeah, they were. Absolutely.
I think the Scottish accent, the Scottish insult was funny. I thought that was funny. I think most Scottish people would find that funny because it's they came from a Gaelic language. They don't speak English natively originally. What natively? I say like it was like it's not like 1,200 years old now or something ridiculous like that. They've been speaking it longer than my country's been around. Anyway, I'm sorry I didn't go on a tangent. That was just kind of funny.
Well, to bring it back around, I think it's the whole idea that you're never gonna.
You can't please everybody.
You're never going to accomplish. Yeah, you can't please everyone, and you're never going to accomplish anything if you don't take a risk. When you take your risk, you got to know people are not going to like you. Yeah, and you got to be thick-skinned about it, and you just got to roll with it.
Yeah, you have to not care. And I tell people all the time. I tell my youth group kids all the time, like, there needs to be a very, very short list of people who are allowed to speak into your life.
Yeah.
And you need to know that those people are people who care for you, are honest and transparent with you, and that they are on your side. They're for you. And anybody else that's not on that short list, who cares what they think? Who cares what they say? They don't get to speak into my life. They can speak at me, and I'll ignore it because I know they're not for me. Yeah. They haven't earned the right to get through that wall that I have of, you can say whatever you want to say. I don't care.
Well, we come from
you don't get to speak into my life.
The culture now is so, and it's really funny because I'm rereading The Giver, and there's some stuff in there that's really crazy and creepy that's really on point with what's happening
relevant now.
Yeah, even more so. But like everything's by committee and bureaucracy. Even when you're in school, everything's about what everybody thinks and like whatever. You're in group projects all the time, and it's like, man, that's not how the real world works. That's not how reality has ever worked. It's like, no, 99.9999% of opinions by any person does not matter.
Don't matter.
No, they don't. It's just, it's a good way if you approach, Josh, the same angle that you just said, but people would do that in all people, not just kids, but all people would do that toxic reactionary thing. I mean, you can react to things accordingly with your emotion because that's what makes us human, but there's also that toxic reactionary. And when you do that toxic reactionary, that's what that comes from when you let too many people influence how you're supposed to react and what you're supposed to do. And that's why I brought up Taylor Swift, because that's what people are doing. They're like, respond. And in her mind, she's probably like, that's my boyfriend doing his own thing. I don't have nothing to do with that. I didn't say it. I have nothing to do with it. That's him. Go talk to him.
The whole thing is also showing, again, the way this is so crazy is that no one's safe.
Right.
Yeah.
And
just guilty by association. And that's not.
It's like guilty of what? Finding something stupid hilarious?
Yeah, that'd be like
just pretend he's stupid. Like, just assume he's dumb. I've what people with me like just assume I'm an idiot. That's
that'd be like my wife. That'd be like my wife being harassed for something that I did that she had no part in, that she probably wasn't even in the same town for.
The only person as a human, like as a man, that you take responsibility for is like your children.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's like
because then you have to
they say something in public that they shouldn't say. You're like, okay, I'm sorry, they shouldn't have said that. I'll take care of that.
Well, because
their mother.
Yeah.
they're on that short list of people you speak to. Then they become a person
Well,
that
you have
you speak
authority
into their
over.
life.
Yeah.
Right. And
Right.
that's a different angle. But not like I don't think a significant other qualifies.
I would have not taken any
That
flack. I would have not taken any flack for a girlfriend. She's
No.
up. She said, "What?"
No. I mean, I don't know. It's just interesting, but I think that it has to be pursued the same way in the art world, and I think in what you guys are creating, you guys are approaching it with that. You don't give a crap. I mean, I've seen countless podcasts where you say we're going to talk about religion, or we're going to talk about politics, or we're going to deviate from here and go there, or we're going to talk
Yeah.
about this
We
or
always
that.
we always try to tie
And
it back into art.
right,
And
Yeah.
the thing is, you're not
but you're keeping it original, and that in itself is an art.
my.
The art of
I don't.
conversation.
I'm not ever like. I will say this. I don't. I don't go out of my way to purposefully offend anybody. I don't
No.
want to offend or hurt somebody. That's not my
Mhm.
goal. But you know, I'm one of those people that if I've said it, I meant to say it.
Right.
You know, I thought about it. I said what I meant to say. You know, and like my wife has had to deal with kickback from that before in our marriage because I'm pretty bluntly honest with people sometimes.
Well, you're not pretty.
And I've had yeah. And there's been plenty of times when people have gone to her and say, you know, he said so and so. I really, and she'll just tell them, well, go talk to him. He's the one that said it. Like,
He said
Like, that ain't
Scottish.
my
He
mouth.
sounds Scottish. Sound like dumb English.
they're like, well, it does. So
That comment's
The
great.
Scottish.
hey,
would
who
agree
you
with you.
calling dumb English?
The Scottish would probably
What
rather.
dumb English?
Wouldn't they rather be speaking Gaelic again or whatever, or
I don't
Scott?
know.
No,
What do they
'cause
speak?
whatever they can get out when they're wearing the kilt,
Well, you know what the problem with Scots
tossing a log.
or Scotland
Yeah.
is? The
They
full Scots.
they spoke Gaelic. Like Irish, didn't Irish, Scottish, and Welsh all speak Gaelic? Yeah.
Yeah.
They
They're
like
all part.
who?
Well, they're all Celtic.
Yeah, it's all the same thing.
They're all Celt. Yeah.
And that idea. I mean, they're not the same. They're different tribes, of course. Anyway, whatever.
Every tribe is the same.
tell that to the Jews.
Yeah.
They made entire books telling you how all 12 of them were different. No, it was Dan.
Yeah.
Those guys ruined it. Is that what was that, Numbers? Josh?
Yeah.
Where they're like, yeah, the tribe of Dan, they're the ones that messed up first.
Oh no,
Of course they were.
I sleep through that. I sleep through all the name
I
name
mean,
listing.
Dan, you know good and well if you had a tribe.
Yeah, my tribe would suck. Yeah. That's a really good book, actually. The Bible.
Mhm. The best.
You should try it sometime.
Mhm.
Man. No, it's just
Yeah.
I tie it all back in, man. It's like things are stale because this is so weird, and now I'm just pontificating because I got time. Why not? Unless y'all got to go. But I was like,
Nah, we're
I was
good.
rereading The Giver again. I was saying, and it felt so good because I haven't read a book for like joy in like a year because I had to like take tests and stuff,
Mm-hmm.
and it just felt so much better. I don't know, reading like a tangible book and enjoying it. It felt like my whole brain realigned better than just being like even reading like novels on a phone, because I'll do that. I'll read like entire novels on like my phone and stuff,
Yeah.
and the book just felt so much better.
Yeah, my wife
I love
wife
that
does
physical
that.
book.
Yeah, my wife is reading a lot of novel excerpts, and what she'll do is um she'll read like the first 4 or 5 chapters of a book on her phone, and then she'll find out what the series is, and then she'll just go and purchase the entire series. But she'll read the first couple of chapters first, and that's kind of what I did when I was helping to get her on her birthday most recently. Was that I went ahead and I kind of read a little bit into a novel series for her because I knew that's how she purchases her own novels.
Yeah.
And I ended up getting her an entire like 7 book collection of something that she would have been in, of something that she's into, and she's like in the middle. She's probably a little over halfway done with it now, the whole series. But but that's how we kind of shop for books, and we kind of do it like that. But she'll sit there and read a whole novel online, and she'll say, she wants that page, she wants the pages. I'm an auditory learner. I don't I don't really. I'm not really. I'm very well read, and I write very well, but I'm not good at retaining information through reading as much as I am through listening.
Hmm.
And so all my books are Audible books.
Yeah.
And so that's the medium I choose to consume everything. So right now I'm reading George Washington by Ron Chernow, the award-winning um, award-winning uh,
Biography.
biography of him. And
I've got that one on my shelf right over here.
I got my
yeah, it's
gun on
pretty
my holster
amazing.
hip.
And yeah,
Great book.
and I just got done listening to Matthew McConaughey's
Green lights.
Green
Green
Lights,
lights.
and then it actually inspired me to join his Facebook group that he was doing like life inspirational stuff. So
Yeah,
he's
Green Lights is really, it's got some great stories.
yeah, Green Lights is super inspirational. I love that
Yeah,
book.
it's really good read.
And he narrates it on
Mm-hmm.
Audible, so you hear it in his voice. I've just and there's a whole lot of other books. Chris Jericho's book, "No is a four-letter word."
Hmm.
How I succeeded at life but failed at spelling. That's the whole title. And it's just him giving out stories of every time that someone told him no, and he was like, "No, I'm just going to do it anyway," and he succeeded.
Yeah.
Um, and but that's just my way of learning. I just choose to listen as opposed to you know, as opposed to read, but I'm
I,
still well read,
I just think for
you know.
creators, it's being bold and daring to make something that's worth people's money and time, and more
Hmm.
importantly, worth their space. Because we live in a digital world, and the digital space is cheap. It's nothing. Anyone can throw something up on. I mean, on Instagram. You need to make
Mm-hmm.
something that people will put on their shelf,
Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
and
yeah,
that's really hard. Because it means you have to not be afraid and not take the weak bait of just throwing it up on digital. And I'm saying that to comic book creators now. Like, I know the digital option, people like that. Make something people will buy. If someone
yeah,
will only buy your book or your thing digitally, it's not good. And I'm not trying
Right.
to. It's like there's always a push. I'm not saying not have a digital option, but there's always a push. Like, well, if they can afford it, like, man, when I was dirt broke as a kid, I found a way to get like CDs I wanted. If I had to save for
Mm-hmm.
6 months to get $20 to go buy like
Mm-hmm.
Diamond Rio's greatest hits or whatever I wanted at the time, I made it happen. Like,
Yeah.
people will make things happen when they want it, and
right.
you have to make something that good. And
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Like, that's why we're trying to make stuff like my God, we got Hans here to be our lore master because we created so much. We want people to lose themselves in videos and then lose themselves in paper, in pages, and plastic. Like,
Well, you see, that's kind of the reason why I signed on to do a lore master. Is my passion is through because I learn through sound, through listening.
yeah,
The best way I like to express myself through sound. And I'm
farts.
not a great yeah, right. Farts and grunts. I'm not a I'm not a great singer. I've been vocally trained, but I never kept up with it, and then I had years of smoking and drinking, and that just destroyed any chance I ever had of preserving anything in my voice. But um, I do love to read and to talk because it's how I like to consume media. You know,
Yeah.
I'm a huge sports fan, as both of y'all know, and my teams, while I watch them on TV and I pay, literally hundreds of dollars extra for packages so I can see my teams because they're all out of market. Um, every chance I get to hear a game on the radio, I take the radio option over
Mm-hmm.
the TV option. I have my own radio shows I listen to, and that's kind of what I was wanting to do. Is being a lore master, I don't want people to see my face. I want you to hear it because I feel like if you're looking at me, then it's a distraction. Not only because I'm ugly, but also not only because I'm a fat, sweaty lord. No, it's because I feel like I'm talking. I feel like I'm with you.
Yeah.
If you hear my voice is with you. So you're hearing it, and I'm talking to you, not at you. And I think that when I do these lore videos, and you see the art come up, and you see the production in it. That's what I want you to see. I want you to hear me, and I want you to see that, and I don't want to be the distraction on that. And that's how I like to do a lot of my media too. I much prefer to write for a newspaper than I do for I do broadcast. Not that I'm not qualified to do broadcast news. I'm newsroom certified. I have all my certifications. I'm all good to go. And I can do production and high quality video broadcasting if I want to. But, you know, I would rather do a phone interview or do a face to face interview and record it and then write it and produce it for a newspaper or produce it for a radio station or something like that. Um, and everybody just has their niche and their thing, and that's kind of my thing. And that's what I want. That's what I'm trying to bring to the table here. I'm trying to
Yeah.
bring, you guys, Josh, you're an amazing artist, and you just bring that. Everything just comes alive, and Dan, your words are like living, you know what I'm saying? It's like living words, living art, and I'm trying to bring you living sound, and I know you're doing that with Blue Bold as well.
Yeah.
But and that's kind of the angle here
I mean,
that I'm
ultimately,
coming from for people who don't know me.
what we're trying to do with all of this is create an experience that doesn't feel like something you've already had 1,000 times.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's why hopefully we find the people that are going to respond to that and say, yeah, this, I would rather give my money to this than to another mass produced
Crap fest
series of crap that I've already seen that's just being regurgitated and put a new CGI paint job on it and send it out to the theater. Like, hopefully people will respond to, look, I want to read something that I'm going to read again 1,000 times.
Right, and that's kind of the whole approach this entire show that we did, this podcast episode, was originality versus something that's mass produced.
Mm-hmm.
And it's so funny that the thing that is mass produced actually comes from a toy line that's already mass produced. So
Exactly.
or toy lines rather. But I did mention, I talked about Disney and Warner and what they're doing. But I'm not going to hate on all of it because, the original concept for, and I'm trying to just bring this back around to what we were talking about at the beginning, with the original concept with Marvel was with Iron Man and with Edward Norton's Hulk and things like that. Those were great.
Yeah, they showed it could be done.
Yeah, and also what kind of DC is still doing, even though the Snyderverse is gone, Blue Beetle looks fantastic.
It does.
And I think that I haven't seen the new Shazam yet, but I'm going to watch the new Shazams here soon. It's already uploaded on Max.
I watched the first hour of it last night. It's not bad. It's not as good as the first one so far. But
the thing about Blue Beetle is, like, you can already tell that it's not heavily beholden to any kind of established continuity. It's just sort of its own little corner.
Right.
And they let that person, that director, make a good movie that, looks a lot like the Guyver to me. If you know what the Guyver is, it's what it gives me Guyver vibes. It looks like a fun 80s
the Guyver
movie.
Vibes.
Well,
it gives me the Guyver vibes.
The lead actor, he's in he plays the character Miguel in Cobra Kai, which Cobra Kai is a phenomenal show to me. I love Cobra Kai. Yeah, I always look
better
forward.
with every season.
Yeah, every season's better than the previous, and I always look forward to like new seasons. And it's like when the main kid's there, and he's already nailed the angsty teenager role down in that show. So it's no problem for him. And I don't want to say he's typecast. I don't think he really is. It's just no problem for him to access that same emotion when he's playing Blue Beetle. It's like, okay, yeah, you're like, I get it. Like, you're the cool kid from Cobra Kai and you're about to be the cool teenage kid in Blue Beetle. I can dig it. You're on board. I'm on board. Let's go, buddy. That's kind of how that's really what sold Blue Beetle for me, was when I saw who the main actor was. I was like, oh yeah, it's the Cobra Kai kid. Heck yeah.
I'll go see Blue Beetle in theater way sooner than I'll go see Ant-Man 3 or
Yeah, that one just looked bad. I didn't even see it. I
Well,
never saw
I fell
Quantumanium.
I fell asleep in the first 10 minutes. So I'll tell you, in the first 10 minutes, they have oh man, what's it?
They got that gun on their holster.
Who's the main bad guy in the DCU now? What's Kang?
Kang.
Kang.
They had Kang show up, which he was never a main bad guy in anything in Marvel. I don't know why he's all of a sudden a main bad guy now. But
He was a pretty big bad guy in the comics, dude.
and Fantastic Four beat the fool out of him many times. But Reed Richards owned him.
Yeah,
Talking about he saw a Kang.
he saw a Kang.
But Reed Richards owned Kang. I don't care what anybody says. But this is just it. You know, I always associated with him with Fantastic Four. So I was like, why is he in Avengers? But you know, he's in like the first 10 minutes of Ant-Man, and as soon as he's like introduced, I was already asleep. And my wife was like, what the heck? Like, you didn't even make it. I was like, yeah, okay. So I tried again, and I still didn't make it past to the part where he was introduced. As soon as he comes on screen for the first time, I'm like, and I'm out. I was like, this is the most
I've said
boring crap ever.
I've said this before, but like my
I don't
thing
like
is
Paul Rudd.
like after Thanos, like you had a cosmic level threat. Don't do the multiverse crap. Nobody cares about the multiverse. I mean, Spider-Verse is doing okay. Spider-Verse is doing okay because it's Spider-Man, not multiverse. Nobody cares about a million variations of Krang or whatever. Krang would be cool.
Yeah, it would. Giant brain.
Marvel, give us the Omega Red versus Alpha Flight versus Wendigo movie. That's what I want. Can you imagine that? A frozen tundra, Omega Red, and he's fighting Alpha Flight and they're trying to subdue him, and suddenly they're all surrounded by Wendigos, and like you got
or Sabretooth with Sabretooth. Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, all these Wendigos out there, and like Omega Red ripping them with like his tentacles, like ripping them apart. With Puck, like fighting them, that'd be so cool.
But then communists would have to be the enemy, and they can't be the enemy because they're not Nazis.
Yeah. Just make the Wendigos a communist allegory.
There you
go. Anyway, Josh is texting us that he has to go poop, so we'll wrap it up.
I wasn't going to say anything. I just ha-ha'd in the text.
This was a fun hang.
Yeah,
we'll do some more like this. And guys, we're setting up a Substack soon. I'm going to start throwing up a ton of more writings and stuff like that. We're going to be moving to that method so we can actually get paid something and have an incentive to put way more out there. We want to make more stuff. And we want to do everything we can to make more stuff. So be looking out for Hans's voice. We're going to get him involved in more than just the lore videos, and some actual podcasts coming up, stuff like this, and some in-world story podcasts. Mm-hmm. Josh literally quit his day job to work on this stuff. So
this is my day job also, because I currently don't have a job.
Yeah.
If any news
reporter, you bums.
if any news company is looking to hire, please, I'm here. Yeah. Or if you need some PR representation.
Yeah, hire the guy that was on the podcast where we quoted the Matt Healy offensive jokes.
That's great PR,
Some
right?
Irish guy will hire you. I hear you didn't like the Scottish. me either.
The
irony is I mentioned I was a sports fan. Well, my family soccer team growing up, Hans, obviously my name is, I come from a family of immigrants, and so we're all Hamburg FB fans because we're hamburgers. And Rangers FC is the sister team to Hamburg.
Did you just say anything in English?
No, they are called the Glasgow Rangers because they are considered like the Scottish, like one of the best Scottish Premiership teams. So the whole time while we're razzing them, I was definitely on Facebook earlier saying much love to the Scottish guys on the Rangers of Glasgow. I was giving them all the props while we were on Facebook while we were laughing at Matt Healy and all those guys really against them. So it's pretty funny. But anyway, yeah, and I do look forward to getting more involved on these podcasts too. I know you guys have only seen me sporadically, and you've only heard me in the lore videos, but I will hopefully begin soon becoming more regular on these podcasts.
Yep,
definitely, especially with Steven. And we're overdue for a Middle Earth podcast. And Steven, who you guys have heard many times from, he was gonna he's got to jump in, and we'll do a little fatal 4-way since it'll be the 4 of us, and we'll just deep dive into Tolkien. And it's just
I'd like to do like a 2 to 4 hour Tolkien dive.
We'll release the extended edition of that episode.
Yeah.
Do what?
The director's cut.
We'll do the extended editions of that episode.
Yeah, but I do look. So guys, if you hear me, now you see me, and hopefully as these podcasts produce every week, you'll start seeing me pop up a lot more regularly, and we will go from there. That's all I got.
Yeah, we'll start some super chats. Maybe we can get some people in here to say terrible things to us for money.
Absolutely. I would all be down for if y'all have podcasts going. There is a you can comment and react to things, and I would absolutely love to engage with you guys, talking to the listeners as you're hearing it, and I can go back and forth, and I can do a live stream chat with you guys, so that way you're listening to these guys here, but then you're interacting with me on there.
He's doing it right now with no one talking to him, so
exactly.
Just imagine how great it could be if we were here.
Yep. So,
all right.
I'm
gonna wrap it up there.
Yep.
Had fun, guys, and we'll see you next week.